Hello friends. So what kind of boat do you actually need? That's a question I get in emails and messages kind of regularly. And so I wanted to put together a little video that talks about things that you might want to consider when you're getting ready to buy your first boat or you're getting ready to upgrade, that maybe will help you kind of be better educated about what to actually look for, and some things that you might run into in the future, both good and bad, depending on the choices you make. So let's get into it. So a pretty common concern when you get interested in sailing and you decide you kind of want to take the plunge and get a boat is not really knowing where the start point is and what makes the most sense as far as getting your first boat. Now, the main question you need to ask yourself, and this is the question I pose to everyone who writes me about this subject, is what do you want to use the boat for? That is the very first question that needs to be answered for you to understand what kind of boat that you need to be looking at so that you get a good boat that's going to work for you and your needs in the immediate future. So the main things that we'll cover in this video is, do you want to use it for coastal cruising so you and your family or you and your friends can explore your local anchorages or the islands in your area? Or are you interested in doing blue water cruising and ocean passages? Those are the kind of two types of boats that we're going to look at. And I'll only be covering monohulls because that's what I'm interested in. And also, this video is mostly for people working on a limited budget. So if you have a budget of like over $100,000 to buy a boat, chances are you have a broker who's going to walk you through all this stuff. And but this is really geared towards someone like working on anywhere from like, $100 budget to, $20,000 budget. So the first place you want to start with this entire conversation and educating yourself is buying the book by John Vigor, 20 Small Sailboats to Take You Anywhere. That is like the Bible for purchasing a small boat, and he outlines 20 boats and their pros and cons to kind of give you an idea as to what might work for you. And my buddy Neil Fletcher gave me that book before I owned a boat, when I was like dreaming of having a boat. And the Alberg 30 is the first one in the book. I mean, it's listed alphabetically, but we're gonna go ahead and go with that. So that is a great resource for being able to be like, okay, these are all the things that I should look for. And that, and that's like outlined for like, kind of going anywhere. Another book to pick up, which is kind of the next level up with budget range, is 20 Affordable Sailboats to Take You Anywhere. And those, I think those boats in there kind of range between $10,000 and $20,000. Where the John Vigor book is, you can find a lot of those boats for under $10,000. And another good book on this subject is The Best Used Boat Notebook by John Kretschmer, and that outlines a bunch of his reviews on a bunch of different boats. So that's kind of the starting place. Once you've decided that you want to go, coastal cruising or ocean sailing or whatever, then get those books, memorize them, and especially that the 20 sailboats to take you anywhere. Even if you decided, like, if you couldn't find one of the boats in that book, you're going to be able to look at all the characteristics of boats in that book to help you determine what makes sense for you and what your long-term goals are. Okay, let's talk about the different types of boats that exist that you would want to consider. So if you're interested in coastal cruising, I would really advise looking at a boat with a fin keel and a spade rudder, because they tend to be beamier, which gives them more room down below. And it's often said you spend far more time in marinas and under anchor than you do at sea. But they're also way easier to learn to drive the boat. Like, they're more maneuverable. A full keel boat is far more comfortable in a seaway. So if you plan on doing ocean sailing, I'm all for full keel boats when it comes to ocean sailing. I've done ocean sailing on flat bottom fin keel fast boats, and it was very uncomfortable. And there are tons that do it. Not saying that that type of boat isn't possible to do ocean sailing. It's absolutely possible to do ocean sailing in those. I'm just saying it can be very, very uncomfortable. In a full keel boat, the keel kind of cuts through the waves and keeps her very stable. And also, like, full keel boats can heave to, where fin keel boats really cannot heave to very well. So the kind of middle ground between those two is a skeg hung rudder. So that's like, you know, a long keel or a fin keel, and then there's a part of the hull that comes down that the rudder actually attaches to. I was on a 40, I think it was a 42-foot Dufour, like $300,000 boat in the Carolinas, and the captain ran up on a sandbar because we missed a mark. And instead of like waiting for high tide and us to just float off, he kind of panicked and was gunning it with his 75 horsepower Yanmar and ripped the rudder off the boat. And I have like film footage of it popping up and floating away from us. So, you know, the spade rudder are at risk in many ways, is very much just kind of hanging out there, and definitely can be damaged or ripped off in certain circumstances, where like that could never happen to our rudder because it's attached all the way down to the keel, and on a skeg hung it is supported by a skeg. So those are things to consider. Also, if you run aground, just wait for high tide. That's the main thing of that spade rudder would have been perfectly fine if we'd have just waited, set, and looked like, you know, jerk-offs and waited for high tide. So those are the different types of boat designs that you want to think about when it comes to the different type of sailing that you want to do with your boat. Now we want to talk about buying a boat that is like a barn find, or in like kind of in a state of abandonment, or a boat that is like, you know, kind of well outfitted already for what you want to do. All of that comes down to how much money you have initially to purchase the boat. For instance, we're sitting on Triteia right now, which I got for $2,400. She had a seized engine, completely gutted. There was no equipment on the boat whatsoever. Like, kind of, it had the original sail from 1965, and like our headsail is from some other boat, like a 27-foot boat. So like nothing on the boat. She was very sound, like none of her decks were compromised or anything, but she was bare bones all the way and needed a new engine. While I got her for $2,400, I've since put over $25,000 into refitting her. Now, we have refit her for blue water cruising, and we've put a, you know, certain creature comforts in that aren't necessary for everyone, but we have geared her up in a way that is going to make life comfortable for us to do what we want to do, which is kind of going into wild places.
Can I have my coffee?
Yeah. Camille wants her coffee, just a sec. Now, one thing to consider when you are buying a used boat is people have crazy ideas about what boats are worth. Like, just because I have put, you know, $25,000 or whatever into this boat doesn't mean that this boat is worth $25,000. So, like, get that idea out of your mind. When you buy a boat and you start outfitting it, don't think that every dollar you put into it makes her worth that dollar. Because that's, I mean, boats are only worth what people will pay for them, right? So, but that's a misconception that certain people have. You should be outfitting the boat as a tool for you, you know what I mean? Not as like, oh man, this thing's gonna be worth so much money, because that's not always the case. So keep in mind too, when you're looking at boats that are kind of already outfitted, certain gear will kind of last forever. Like if the boat has a wind vane on it, that's a good thing to add because they're expensive and they're pretty stout and mechanical. But something like an outdated chart plotter might not be to your benefit and might not add to the value of the boat. So keep that in mind. You know, the other thing to think about is what is your skill level of being able to do the labor yourself. So buying a boat like this, while like I said, I put $25,000 into it, I did all the labor, and none of that cost reflects the amount of labor I put into it. So had I had to have had someone else do everything I've done to this boat, it would have been far more expensive than the $25,000 we've invested in the boat. So if you're not someone who is able to do the repairs and stuff to the level that they need to be done, you're going to have to hire someone. So that's definitely something to consider, you know, when you're shopping for boats. Another thing I want to say right now is I would really advise against, if it's possible at all, buying a boat that's far smaller than you think you want. So, you know, in many instances, it's like, well, I only have this much money, or maybe I'm nervous about a bigger boat. I'm just going to get this 20-foot boat, or I'm going to get this 24-foot boat. But really, you know, your heart's in it. The thing that happens is, like, if you get a little 24-foot boat and you cruise it for like a couple months, you might quickly realize, oh man, I really want, like, you know, a 27-foot boat or a 30-foot boat. And then the problem becomes you have to try to sell the boat you already bought while you're also trying to buy another boat. So if you know that your heart's into it and you've already done some sailing and you know that you enjoy sailing, really think about kind of trying to buy within the range that you can afford the size boat that you really want. And a lot of, obviously, it's like, it all comes down to money when at the end of the day. Because, you know, as boat feet go up, so do prices. And that's another interesting thing to talk about is, I don't know why it's some kind of black magic, but like a 26-foot boat versus a 30-foot boat are wildly different vessels as far as space goes, especially down below. So, and you would think it's only 4 feet. You know, it's like the side of a piece of plywood. But 4 feet in boat feet, for some reason, is expansive. And it makes a huge difference. And not saying that, you know, you can't do that. Like the Pardis, like I believe Seraphin was, I think it was a 24-foot boat, and they circumnavigated in that thing. And it had no head or anything. So you can do a lot with very little if you're fine with being like having different levels of comfort. But just keep that in mind when you're shopping for a boat, because keeping a 20-foot boat in a slip and keeping a 30-foot boat in a slip isn't that much different cost-wise as far as your slip fee goes. And it might make more sense to try to go to a level that's closer to what you eventually want anyway. Another thing to think about is the long-term upkeep and affordability of what type of boat you want to get. When I was shopping for Triteia, I was shopping for like Cape Dory 25Ds. I was shopping for, the main boat I was looking for was Tritons, which are 27-foot, I believe. And they're Carl Alberg design, full keel, they've circumnavigated. And I thought, I was comfortable that I could afford the upkeep on a 27-foot boat. Didn't think that I could afford a 30-foot boat. And because a lot of them were going for like $10,000 to $20,000, between $10,000 and $20,000 in really bad shape. And it just wasn't in my budget, and definitely not. You need to think about long-term budget because with every foot added to a boat, the gear price goes up a lot. And like the price of like refitting a 30-foot boat versus refitting a 40-foot boat is crazy, the difference. So that's something you really need to think about, you know, is kind of the long game. Another thing that I really want to stress, and I believe the first person I heard talk about this was John Kretschmer, but I can't remember, is that when you buy a boat, get her seaworthy, make sure that she's safe enough, but don't start any major projects until you go sailing. So like, get your boat, make sure that she's safe, seaworthy and everything, and then sail her for a full season before you get into any crazy projects. Because there's like, that's going to do two things. The first thing it's going to do is make you see what you actually need to replace and not the things that you're like, well, this would be cool to add. The other thing it's going to do is hopefully you're going to fall in love with that boat, so that when you get to the terrible jobs that you're gonna have to do, you won't be like, why did I do this? You know, you'll love her enough and remember like the excitement you had sailing her to be like, okay, we can get through this and it's going to be better for it. And I think that's very important, because there are certain points where you're doing stuff and you're like, why do I do this to myself? I just can't get my head around it. But if you remember like sunrises at anchor, or quiet day sails, or completely reefed down, just burying the rails sailing, then you're like, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing this for. And it'll be very beneficial to you if you can get your head around that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you haven't done much sailing and you're really interested in the lifestyle and you want to go cruising and stuff, I would really advise you to get out on boats first, because you might find that you get terribly seasick and you're very miserable. And you can work through seasickness, but I really feel like it's easy to get excited about the possibilities of a sailboat, but you should be realistic with yourself and make sure, get out there, go sailing. You can, get on like day sails. You can and I have a video that talks about how to start getting on boats. And I'll put a card up right now so that you guys can check that out if you haven't seen it. And it's called Actual Attainable Adventure Cruising. So check that video out, because I talk about different ways to get on boats if you don't have a boat, because you really want to be sure that this is something that's for you before you kind of take this large kind of plunge into the abyss that is boat ownership. Do you think I need to add anything else?
How close to camping are you comfortable with?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, and I could talk about your mate too, like. Yeah, so I'll talk about that now. Okay, so here on Triteia, we added a number of things that you would only see on much bigger boats, because we plan on being on this boat for the better part of the next decade, sailing around the world. We added a refrigerator. We added a water heater with a shower, like a wet head, so that we can have like hot water showers. There was like only a built-in stove. I added a gimbaled alcohol stove. So certain things you want to think about. What kind of comforts would you like, or would your partner, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, what would they like? What would make them comfortable? Because if it's your passion, you got to consider, if you're asking them to come along, being on boats is not terribly comfortable. And also, how close to camping are you guys comfortable with, and how close to like trying to be in like a more relaxed environment? So those are things that, and there's a lot of compromise that takes place in that, So you need to ask yourself, when you're looking at a boat, how comfortable is this going to be for myself and my loved ones who I'm going to be taking sailing, and then keep that in mind when you're shopping for boats. Here's a perfect example of this. Our good buddy Noah, he loves completely stripped out race boats. I can't remember what size. He had an Olsen, I don't remember what size his Olsen, maybe an Olsen 40. And that thing was like, it had pipe berths, and it was like completely, it's a race boat, very fast. And he was like, isn't this thing awesome? And his wife, Alex, was like, they were planning on going full-time cruising. She was like, absolutely not. She was like, we need to have like, if you're asking me to like leave our home and go living on a boat full-time, I'm not going to be sleeping on pipe berths, which I agree with her 100%. I would not have wanted to live on that Olsen. And I love Noah, and that boat was probably very fast. But sometimes you need to make a compromise. They ended up with a J42, which is a very comfortable boat. It's also fast. Not as fast as Noah would like, but that's a good example as to being like, okay, what level of comfort do we need to make this like, because if you take your loved ones out and they're like, this is miserable, I don't want to do this. Not only will that specific like cruise or trip might be spoiled, but long term you might be like, oh, now I'm doing this alone, which maybe you didn't think you were going to have to do everything alone. Or, you know, it's just more fun to share these experiences with someone else. What?
You could also say, just, can you stand up in the boat?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because that's another example of, like, it seems fine until you're trying to spend weeks and weeks on it.
Yeah. So Camille just gave me a good tip. A very important thing, which we don't ever have to worry about this because we're like the size of half humans. But can you stand up? We're fun size. You need to be able to stand up comfortably in your cabin in more than just one spot. And don't compromise on that. Unless you just plan on doing day sails. If you're just going to do day sails, then that doesn't matter. But if you want to spend a weekend or a week under anchor or at a mooring ball somewhere sailing around, it is a very important factor. And Captain Dave Stovall, we were both out at the island once, and he had this little really cool, I think the boat's called a Tiffany Jane, really cool little like small production run quick boat, but he could not stand up in it. He had to, like, his head was bent over when he was standing up. And he told me on his sail back to Marina del Rey from Catalina, he was like, I was on my phone shopping for boats. He was like, I'm not doing that ever again. So when you're shopping, like, that's the time to be like, okay, can I comfortably move around my space without being crunched? Because you won't want to keep that boat, or if you do keep it, you're not going to want to spend any kind of long amount of time on it. And of course, things are different for everyone. Some people are okay being miserable. I'm somewhere in the middle. But you know, that's a very important thing to think about, is can you comfortably stand up in the boat that you're shopping for? Because you want to be able to stand up, I promise you. Okay. So another aspect to think about when it comes to long-term budgeting is, when I was shopping for Triteia, my parameters were, it had to be a blue water boat, so it had to be full keel, and it had to be pre-1972. The main factor for that was that I did not want a boat that had a cord hull. So most boats after 72, they started doing like a foam core. So there'd be like fiberglass, thin fiberglass, foam core, and then fiberglass. And what happens is they'll delaminate over time. The water will get in and compromises the layup, and it delaminates, and then you have a world of problems. And there are a billion boats out there that are cored. Like, it's not pointless or hopeless to get a boat that's cored, but look into it, especially a specific model, and see if that's like a known problem for that model. It's just something good to know about. And for me, I never wanted to deal with it. I don't ever want to be educated on dealing with a delaminated core, so we bought an Alberg 30, which has a solid fiberglass hull, and I just never have to worry about it. I mean, the only thing we would have to worry about is osmosis, but we hauled out and we didn't have any problems with that. The other thing to know, a very important thing to know and look at when you're shopping for these boats, is whether you have an encapsulated keel or a bolt-on keel. Now ours is encapsulated, so that means from deck to deck, it's solid. Like, the ballast is completely integrated into the boat. Now, bolt-on keel, you look down, you have your bolts. Sometimes they're rusty. A lot of things that'll happen with like Catalinas is what's called the Catalina smile, where the bolts will like become elongated, and you'll see a gap where the keel's like kind of ready to fall off. So, that's another thing when it comes to long-term costs, is, are you going to have to get that keel reset, which is a major operation. So, for me, I was like, I wouldn't own a bolt-on keel. And again, there's tons of boats out there that are perfectly fine with bolt-on keels. But for me, I wanted to eliminate as many future problems as I could, because we plan on being in places where there aren't just like regular boat yards. So one thing that's a kind of a downside to our boat Our boat's very, very blue water friendly, but she's also very small inside. So our entire cabin sole is 21 inches wide. And we don't have like a built-in table, which is something I would love to have, like a built-in salon table to where you could always just sit down. Those are certain things that we had to compromise out with the other elements that we wanted. Our boat is not very beamy, so she is very cozy. We call her our clubhouse. And the head is kind of only big enough for me and Camille, and not at the same time. So there's, you know, like I said, there's pluses and minuses to every boat. You just kind of have to figure out what's right for you, what's right for your loved ones, and what kind of sailing you want to do, and then go from there. Now, I'm not going to go very far into all the things you need to look at when you're buying a boat, because that's a whole nother long conversation. But I will say that you should look up, there's tons of videos online that kind of show you what to look for on boats. Like, you know, there's videos showing you how to sound the deck with a screwdriver to hear if it's like been delaminated and stuff. So check those out, you know, scour YouTube and look for those types of videos, and you'll get an idea as to, you know, what are some things that will alert you to red flags about a used boat. So I hope this video helps you guys, and I hope you get out there, get sailing, and follow your dreams. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell so you don't miss any future episodes. And yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts about this. Fair winds until next time.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. It helps us a lot.
Thanks again to all of our patrons. Your contributions help us get the boat ready for big things.
Until next time.
And another good book on this subject is John Kretschmer's The Best Used Boat. God damn it. Fuck off.